that I got an acceptable explanation. The stem, he said, is not a pull tab like on Coke cans, but a handle like on lollipops. So you pinch the end, you peel it down, you don't have those stupid strings anymore, and you got a handle. That's NTPRS. So simple, so sensible, so right. Thank you, Blaine. Thank you for sharing your brilliant invention in language teaching. Thank you, Blaine, for allowing us to tinker with your brilliant invention. Thank you, Blaine, for encouraging us to experiment with that brilliant invention in foreign language teaching. Thank you, Blaine, for encouraging us. Thank you, Blaine, for letting us contribute. Thank you, Blaine, for taking an already wonderful invention and making it into truly the most powerful, the most amazing, the most earth-shattering banana on the planet. And here's Blaine.
Boy, what an introduction. Yeah. I can only remember one better introduction. They called on me at the last minute and I had to introduce myself. Do we have our video?
They're streaming right now. Oh, that video. I don't know.
We do have a surprise. We just got to turn the projector on.
There you go. It's coming up.
Is this our Mike, our Jim Woolley one? Okay, well, this is our group, our Jim Woolley video. Oh.
Maestro, no puedo esperar, yo necesito ir al baño, es una emergencia. ¿Por qué no puedo ir? ¿Por qué no puedo ir al baño? ¿Por qué no puedo ir al baño? ¿Por qué no puedo ir? ¿Por qué no puedo ir al baño? ¿Por qué no puedo ir al baño? Maestro, no puedo esperar, yo necesito ir al baño, es una emergencia. Maestro, no puedo esperar, yo necesito ir al baño, es una emergencia. ¿Por qué no puedo ir? ¿Por qué no puedo ir al baño? ¿Por qué no puedo ir? ¿Por qué no puedo ir al baño? Maestro, no puedo
We learned that from Jim Woolley. Boy, that was a great workshop to learn how to do that. I really was I didn't know what I was doing in my group, but I was put with people who did. Boy, that's the first time I've seen that. That was really good. I've always wanted to be an actor, and I had no idea my first starring role would require some semi-nudity. And sometimes you just have to do it, you know. I mean, I do have a confession to make. That was a true story that happened to me in London, and I got exactly like what you saw. It was the fifth, except the autograph we had. But I was on the 5th story in my underwear. I had to walk down. It was 2 in the morning. And there was a couple there at the desk, so I had to hide behind the wall until they left. And I walked up in my underwear and said, "Could you give me a key?" I was just so glad they didn't ask for ID. Anyway, I love making that movie. That was really neat. What a great week, what a great experience. Could I have all our little grandkids? We have 9 grandkids here. We have 13 in all. We have 13, 9 of them here. They can all stand up. Chelsea, Tyler, Alan, Ashley, Scotty, Mark, Cooper, Austin. Did we miss someone? We're missing somebody. Oh, Mark. Oh, this is Jack. That's Mark. Okay. Yeah, I just about got it. Anyway, I just wanted you to see that. And then Shelly, our daughter, lives in Reading, who's here with her husband, and then Vaughn and Christina. Vaughn and I both married Chrissy Ray. But their birthday isn't the same. They're one day off. My wife is December 7th, and Vaughn's wife is December 6th, so they're not exactly alike. Little Johnny went to school. He was put in a class where the teacher really didn't pay much attention to him. She thought he was kind of a slow learner compared to the other students. One day, she referred to him as a moron. After a couple months, the teacher decided that little Johnny needed to be in another class. So she transferred him. He got in the other class, and when he got in this other class, he saw that the teacher paid more attention to him and talked to him and looked into his eyes, would ask him questions about him. She showed interest in little Johnny. She would say things like, "Little Johnny, what do you like to do?" Little Johnny would say, "Oh, I like the birds. I like to go out with my dad. We can go out. I can identify over 250 kinds of birds. Well, I can see a bird off 50 yards and I can tell you what kind it is. I can just hear a bird and I can tell you what kind it is." The teacher was amazed. She said, "Little Johnny, that is amazing. You must be a genius." And little Johnny said, "What's a genius?" And the teacher said, "Oh, a genius is somebody that knows a whole lot about something." And then little Johnny said, "Well, what's a moron?" And the teacher said, "Oh, a moron is somebody that doesn't know very much about something." And little Johnny said, "You know, teacher, that's amazing. I've been in this class 2 months or 2 days, and you already know more about me in 2 months than that teacher knew in 2 months. You must be a genius, and she must be a moron." Teachers need to think more like students, in my opinion. What is TPRS? It's always been a moving target. We don't claim to have all the answers, we only claim to be searching. As TPRS continues to evolve over the years, we must consider one major factor in this evolution. How does it feel as a student to learn a language? Are we getting it? Are we confident? What is our level of confidence? Or are we getting buried by too much, too fast, too soon? Unfortunately, over the years, we haven't considered this student feeling as much as we might have. I believe that is changing. It certainly is in my mind. I learned so much more about teaching with TPRS when I'm a student learning a language. This is what I call teacher think versus student think. Often, they're miles apart. In conferences and workshops, we see both demonstrated all the time. Teacher think is all about covering lessons, activities, checking boxes, doing worksheets. We think, I need to change every few minutes or the kiddies might get bored. I need to post essential grammar questions or learning targets, we think, teacher thinks, says, oh, I'm being too repetitive. I can't believe they haven't got this. Why didn't they study? What's wrong with them? What's wrong with this generation? It's all about curriculum and objectives. The curriculum objectives rule above all else. Student think, on the other hand, is something entirely different. Student is the feeling that you have when you're learning something new. It's the thoughts that we have as we learn a language we don't know. Students think, says things like, I can't hear those words enough. I missed that. I didn't understand what the teacher said. That was too fast. I feel bad when I don't get it. I feel stupid when I don't get it. I might just drop this class. I must be stupid because look at everybody else. What's wrong with me? Why can't I get it? Thinking like teachers, which is all covering that curriculum, is what buries students. In my opinion, that in order for us to move forward as a movement, we need to think more like students and less like teachers. With that idea, I'm going to say that I have a really good idea of what student think feels like. The reason is because recently I was in Chicago, and Carla, one of the coaches here, I was visiting her school, said, Blaine, I'd like to teach you French. I said, I love that. We set up French lessons every Monday night. They're still going on. She calls me, and we have French class over Skype. I love it. I love it because I get to tell her my feelings. And you know what? She listens. And she gets to tell me. So in our lessons, I'm constantly comparing my feeling as a student to her feeling as a teacher. My student think says, I'm never 100% confident in my answers to Carla in French. But when Carla asks me a question and I say my answer back, since Carla's been trained in NTPRS, she verifies that detail back to me. I found out how important that is, because when she verifies that back to me, I get to feel what is right, because I know she knows it and what she says is right. I get to verify everything. I get to verify the sounds and the grammar, the pronunciation, and my brain listens. Do you know why it listens? Because I'm not confident. I'm not 100% confident because I'm a language learner. I would like you to take a moment and consider your feelings when you learned a new language, maybe this week. What happened when you felt good about your learning? What happened when you didn't feel good? To me, I have determined that the most important process of Carla teaching me is that she needs to verify the detail with me. It's that process that gives me confidence in learning French. NTPRS is about teaching a story, one sentence at a time. We use a 5-step process. It's right up there to teach a sentence. The most important step of that 5 steps, though, is step 4. The reason I know that's important is because that's how I learned with Carla. I found that out by being a student. When she verifies detail with me, she might ask, do you have a doc that speaks Spanish? I say, yeah, I have a doc that speaks Spanish. She then tells me, yes, you have a doc that speaks Spanish. And then, even though there's only 2 of us, if she were in class She would then tell the class, Blaine has a duck that speaks Spanish. But it's that verifying the detail to me that gives me confidence, because I know where my confidence level is, and I get to compare it to her confidence, which is 100%, because she's my teacher. If this is done correctly, Carla talks to the class, says the same thing to the class. I get to hear what 100% sounds like, and then the only difference is it changes from you, then when she says to the class, it changes to he. So I get to hear a different verb conjugation. This is an important aspect of Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis that is manifested in our classrooms with our students. It is through this constant comparing of my speech to her speech that gives me the feeling of confidence, and this is the way I internalize language. I don't think there's process can happen at the highest level without student actors. Student actors is not about forced output, it's about exposure to input for everyone in the class. It is therefore my opinion that we need to have a definition of TPRS that says, TPRS is teaching one sentence at a time to a class using student actors. That isn't enough though. Since my student think tells me I can't get enough repetition, I also need other actors to disguise the repetition, to add to the novelty of the story and to maintain interest. This gives me a break and allows me to hear others say the same sentence with a slightly different detail. This is crucial in the input hypothesis and the input of the class. We're trying to start with comprehension, but we want to end with confidence. This student feeling of confidence is the key to higher level language learning. We are in a battle for their hearts. We win that battle first by comprehension and then by confidence. We lose that battle by burying them with sentences, verbs, too much, too fast, too soon. I have a really good idea of what works for me as a student when learning a language. It's not something that's intellectual nor academic. It is a feeling that this is too much. That doesn't help. I didn't get that. That was too fast. I missed that. But it's a feeling that I'm getting this. This is easy. I can't believe how much I understand. I know this is school, but it doesn't feel like school because I can do this. If you were a comprehensible input teacher and teaching me within comprehensible input, but you were constantly flooding me with language that is too much, too fast, too soon, you will lose me over time. It's only by you taking the time to notice my way of thinking that you can have success with me. To see if you're my teacher, I only want one thing from you. Patience. I want you to be patient in my learning process. I want you to know I'm trying as hard as I can. I'm learning as fast as I can. But you need to be patient with me. And you know what that means? It means that you're going to have to give me a lot more repetitions than you think. Your teacher think mind says go on and do more stories and more sentences. My student think mind says please give me the repetitions so that I can learn your story. I was recently in a class in San Gabriel, California. The teacher was Yan Min. She was a professional basketball player in Shanghai at 16. I loved her class. I was an actor in this story and I loved it. The story was something like Blaine Xiwan Daniel Bu Xiwan Blaine Bu Gao Xing. When she started out with the verb she won, it was very hard for my brain. I just felt like I couldn't get it. You see, that's my student thing. But this wonderful teacher was patient. And she didn't care how long it took for me to get it. And she just kept circling and going through other characters. And I got to hear, she won, she won, she won, she won. When I left that class, I was confident in that verb. I didn't and I don't need to practice she won anymore. And in fact, the next day I woke up and the first thing that came to my brain was, she won. I went up to Hayun. I was so excited. And I went up to her and I said, Hayun, why she won? And she reacted. I said, that, which means I like you. And, oh boy, she reacted. Ooh, boy, that worked, you know. So then I had to just try it out. I said, Nishiwan Wama, you like me? Yeah. Boy, this Chinese isn't really working. The biggest hurdle in teacher thing is the idea of following curriculum. The curriculum is the killer. That curriculum plan is the feeling that you need to cover pages, chapters, and be on a page, chapter 10 by March. It's that teacher thing that kills student learning. Student learning is not a major consideration compared to which teacher is on which chapter on any day. Teachers need to reflect on the classroom practices through the lens of the students they serve. NTPRS is a mentality, a method. It's a way of thinking. It's a thinking that you need to practice a sentence until those kids are confident. It's what Yan Ming did for me. She practiced, she won, until I was confident. I wonder if your anxiety is growing at this time of year due to your requirements to cover a curriculum. Usually the school curriculum ignores students' needs. Just who does that curriculum serve? Grammar-based departments insist on staying the same page day after day with the idea that if they're all together, then if a student changes classes, then he will have been exposed to the same information if he goes to another class. How does that help? If all the teachers are teaching everything on the same page the same day, but the students aren't getting it. Teaching that way, it's easy to prepare and easy to teach, but over time, the students learn little. There's very little that stays in their long-term memory. Stephen Krashen said there's no study that shows that gains from grammar-based teaching last longer than 3 months. NTPRS focus on development language over time. It is the mentality of exposing students to language over days, weeks, and months. Someone called me today, and she asked me about, well, what about teaching the vosotros? And I said, we don't think that way. We think of practicing a sentence. She said, well, what about when you do certain things at a certain time? We don't think of time. We think of practicing a sentence. And when we practice a sentence and get confidence in that, we add another sentence. To get the feeling of student think, you need to learn another language. Sitting in a language class gives you the feeling of the tremendous need for comprehension, compelling, repetitive, and varied input. You don't have that feeling when you're a teacher. In fact, you have the opposite feeling. You have the feeling that you've got to go on and cover and go more sentences and more stuff. As a student, though, or in student think, you don't feel that. You feel the opposite. You feel like you can't get enough repetitions of the same thing. The more chunks of language that I understand, the more confidence I have. As a student, you think, I am now motivated to interact with much more input from the class or teacher. You think, I can do this. Adding too many sentences discourages a student overwhelms and buries our students. You will be a better teacher if you continue to study a language you don't know. Learn Chinese, French, or German. Take a care and enroll in fluency fast class in the language you don't know. During the last few months, Carla's been teaching me French, and this has been such a good experience for me because it helps me give the feeling of what learning as an intermediate in that language feels like. This has been great because Carla and I give each other feedback. She has suggested we need to do more stories. I tell her the opposite. I don't need more stories. I need to get better at the story we're doing. And so, while Carla wanted to do a story a week, I said, no, I don't know this one very well, and I'm not confident. It was a wonderful story about pizza made out of elephant trunk. And so we did that for 3 weeks because she honored my feeling and my need for repetition. It was wonderful. And every week that we stayed on the same story, I got better and more confident. Recently, Carla did another story, last week in fact, and she sent me this story about Marie Antoinette, Let Them Eat Cake. And it was a marvelous story, and I loved it. It was right at my level. So we did this story for an hour, maybe a little over an hour. And at the end, I'm really pretty good at French. You know, I'm a good intermediate. I don't know why I'm an actual still, but I'm intermediate someplace. And I feel pretty confident in the French I know. But at the end, Carla said, oh my gosh, I can see this is a French one story in my mind, but I can see that I've been introducing it way too early. She could see that because she could see one-on-one how I internalize this story. One day I was doing a workshop and I had a French teacher teach French to the teachers in the workshop. They were all language teachers, and she was doing a few sentences in her 10 minutes and jumped from sentence to sentence. After a while, I just jumped in there and I suggested to her to ask her students for some feedback about her teaching. The teachers in that room took about 5 minutes and told her ways that she could do better. Those foreign language teachers did not say one sentence of teacher thinking. Do you know why? Because they were sitting in a class feeling what it likes, what it feels like to learn a language. That's how we're going to learn how to be a better teacher. Give yourself permission to close your door and do what's best for your kids. Teaching another language is not a subject like math or science. We all strive to improve teaching with comprehensible input through NTPRS, yet mastery of this probably won't happen for most of us. Most years, you come back to these conferences and we're doing something different. This year, our conference was filled with movie talks and other various ways to ask historians, sessions on improving reading experiences. We must continue sharing with each other with the purpose of serving others and improving TPRS. I've been doing TPRS for about 30 years, and yet I'm still learning and growing. I'm always trying to see how I can do it better. I film myself sometimes and watch it later. When I watch it later, I can always see, oh, I missed that 4th step there, or didn't verify the detail with the class, or I could have done that better. Maybe after another 30 years of practice, I'll start to learn how to do this. I love going to Alina's class and seeing what she does. I learned from her teaching. I was there in April. I loved to see what she was doing. There it was late in the year. She was explaining the rules and explaining her expectation of behavior. What a blessing it was that we can watch each other and learn from each other. If this is still a challenge, and I'm still working on my NTPRS skills after 30 years, I suspect it might even be a challenge for you if this is your first conference or workshop. If it's so hard, why do we ask that you do it? I would suggest the number one reason we do, there's two main reasons, but the number one reason is student success. A girl that teaches at Lake Tahoe, Anne-Marie, came up to me during this week. She said, I'm here because I learned Spanish with NTPRS, with Jeanette Holman. My student is here, who is a level 2 student, but he was at an AP level ability in his second year of Spanish at Ontario, Oregon. He told me that he graduated from college and went into business, but he didn't like it. He wanted to teach Spanish. And he decided to go to Spanish and teach the way he learned Spanish in high school. You probably know what I'm talking about in Craig Chihai. Woohoo! I love watching the videos and Katya's speech from her students from years ago. What a gift. I have heard from my students too. They have touched my heart as they wrote to me, thanking me for this gift of fluency that continues with them this day. I recently heard from one of them. She wrote, Profe, I wanted to write you a quick note to thank you for everything you taught me in Spanish. I use my Spanish every day. I later talked to her and she told me she uses her Spanish about 30 hours a week. She said, I'm a pediatric physical therapist in East Austin that serves low-income families. I always have people asking me where I learned Spanish. They are astounded when I tell them I learned it in high school. I probably cursed those mini cuentos then, but they really help me now when I'm writing notes to parents and exercise programs for these kids. Muchas gracias. Others have connected on Facebook and sent me emails letting me know they appreciated this gift of fluency in Spanish that has gone on years after that class. We focus on results. It is the results that lead us. Some of you got to see Eric Richards when he was here. What a marvelous story he had. He talked about starting out and teaching, and he said that his first year of teaching at this school, he had 4 students in German 4. He was in a workshop one day with me, and he said, this is my 5th year of NTPRS, but it's the first year that my German 4 class is bigger than Spanish 4. I said, how many German 1 classes are there at your school? He said, 1. How many Spanish 1 classes are there? He said, 10. I talked to him today, and he said, some of those Spanish teachers are doing study hall. And they're doing study hall, and he said, my German program is grown every year. Said, I'm happy to report that next year we'll have another full-time German teacher. We have 4 German 1 sections, 3 sections of more than 25 students in level 2, 2 sections in level 3, and a section more with more than 20 students in level 4, and they're still bigger than Spanish 4. Thank you, Ari. What a gift you are giving those kids. We focus on results, and it's the results that lead us. Would you like to change NTPRS? Show me the results, and we'll do what you're doing. If someone is having better results, we need to look at what that person is doing and follow them. 3 years ago, I went to Alina Filipesu's class, At the end of the class, I stood there. They'd done a writing in class, and this darling little 8th grade girl from India was standing there with her paper. It was filled with one side and halfway on the back. I said, let me read your Spanish. I read it. She had 3 errors. Spanish 1. She was writing at an advanced college level. I said, Alina, this is amazing. She said, oh, I've got a whole stack of them. And I read them. They were all incredible. And I said, Alina, what are you doing that I'm not? And she said, well, you know, I went to NTPRS last year, and I went and learned about embedded readings from Lori Clark and Michelle Whaley. I said, tell me more. Alina told me about embedded readings and volleyball translations. I do admit I was a slow learner, so it took me several repetitions, but I think I finally got it. Today, everything we publish and talk about in TPRS incorporates the ideas that Alina learned at the national conference from Michelle Whaley and Lori Clark. I've spent several years working with a school near Chicago, Grace Lake North High School. They started out with one TPRS convert that luckily was the department chairman. She kept inviting me back. I go there twice a year. I love going there. I've got a lot of YouTube videos from teaching at that school. It has been very interesting to see their progress. Little by little, step by step, their department has grown. 2 years ago, they started out with a pilot program of 2 100% TPRS classes. I went during the year and taught those classes and loved it. Saw what they were doing with student actors, using themselves as parallel characters, just what we teach in workshops. I went the next year and saw that now they've gone from everybody in level 1 and level 2 was doing TPRS, so they had this one silent starting group, but now they had many, hundreds of kids more doing TPRS. She told me a month ago, she said, Blaine, our TPRS kids are so good that we can't move them from level 2 to level 3. We took 57 kids and moved them to Spanish 4 honors and AP. You know, that would be one thing. But you know what? When I've gone there and talked to Valerie, she shows me their timed writings. These kids can write. Do you know what they do best? Verbs. They rarely make an error in Spanish. Do you know what they do poorly according to teacher think? They don't stay on the same tense on the same line very often. They'll usually write, he goes to Los Angeles and he said. Some language teachers that have been trained in a traditional way of thinking think that students should use the same sentence, the same tense all the way through the sentence. TPRS kids don't think that way. They write by feel. So they jump back and forth between present tense and past tense. But you know what they do? They write well and they write a lot. Writing well is evidence of these kids know a lot of language. Writing a lot is evidence of fluency. Valerie kept track of her numbers. She told me that her level 1 kids averaged 38.6 words in 5 minutes after one story. Remember that. Take a story. When you start school, give your kids a time writing 38.6. See how your kids, see if they can beat that. Now, 2 years later, these same kids, so now there's only one group that's done this for 2 years. They now average 98.6 words on a timed writing. The thing is I've read their papers. Their accuracy is amazing. Like Alina's students, these students have mastered the verbs of Spanish. It is rare to see them make errors in verbs. They do make errors in agreement. In adjective agreement, they don't have that down generally. It's something that will happen with more input when their brains are ready for it. We need to share results more. We need to put our kids on YouTube and let other kids see what they can do. Eric, do we have this mic? Yeah. Oh, Eric Herman taught at Martha's Vineyards. I wish I had time to show you more of this. I show this is about a 15-minute clip. I show this in workshops. Teachers can't believe it. So I want you to see a little bit of what Eric has put online. You can go home and Google it tonight and see this. It's amazing stuff.
De pollo, porque hay muchos agricultores en Honduras y a veces una persona entra a luz con sus pollos. En mi caso, mi familia vivía muy cerca de la escuela primaria. Cuando el clima estaba bien, podía caminar.
En Estados Unidos, para
Okay, I didn't know he was going to go there. Since what you saw is Eric Herman read a 300-word story. You heard past tense. He was talking about Honduras and the bus system in Honduras, and he was comparing it to the bus system in the United States. And then at the end, he does an oral interview of these kids so you can just see their fluency. Okay.
Público, transportaste público, no pagar para montar, pero en Honduras necesitas pagar.
Sí, y los buses públicos en Honduras son de buses usados en los Estados Unidos. Y niños en montañas no pueden ir a las escuelas porque necesito pagar mucho dinero para.
Look at the accuracy. It's amazing accuracy.
Hay escuelas primeros en las montañas haciendo prueba
It's amazing. You guys watch that at home. You know what is amazing? When you see the full story that he read and the amount remember what slow processing looks like. He doesn't slow down at all. So he reads this all in the past tense, and at the first he puts up how much Spanish they've had. They're level 1 kids and they've had 3 hours a week. It's incredible to see what Eric has done. We focus on results. It is results that lead us. This is why in NTPRS we say we teach for June. It is only in June where you can see the results of your work. You can see the fluency of your students over time. I used to have my Spanish 1 students give oral reports. This was more for me than for them. I love watching them talk. I told them, if you want an A in my class at the end of the year, you have to stand up in front of the class, talk for 5 minutes in Spanish without notes. I don't remember anyone who couldn't do the 5 minutes, but I do remember sitting in class, in the back of the class, fighting back tears when I saw how well those kids could talk. In the 80s, all of us were searching for ways how to improve language instruction. We listened to James Asher and Stephen Krashen and others. Thousands of teachers found out what to do. We found out what to do. It's called NTPRS. Turned out that NTPRS has a lot of layers. It's not easy. What creates NTPRS success, though, is not giving up. Learn to teach 1 sentence at a time. That's not that hard. Anyone can learn to teach a sentence, learn those 5 steps. Learn how to talk and go back and forth between the class and your student actors. That's not an absolute by any means, but it gives you permission in your brain to talk to the class, talk to the student actor, ask the student actor a question, verify it with the student actor. Add yourself as a character. This lets you give kids input on what I, you, and he sounds like. Learn how to circle. Circle with the 5 steps and multiple characters. Ask the class and your student actors lots of questions about each other, the other actors, and about yourself. Get them used to hearing the different forms of the verbs. This is the input that your kids need to learn how to talk these languages that we're teaching. In TPRS classrooms, we're trying to get lots of comprehension in interesting ways. In the TPRS classroom, we are teaching for confidence in a sentence. It's like me going up to Hayun and saying, "Washi wa ni," and her reacting with smiles when I told her that I like her. It was a good sentence for me to learn, even though it took a while, but now I'm confident. I say that because the key is confidence. Teach for confidence, not just comprehension. Do your finger checks at comprehension and confidence. Those are different things. You can understand everything and not be 100% confident. If you're new to this, you will only get better by doing it. Don't make excuses. In the beginning, you might do this poorly. That's okay. Someone said, anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly at first. I saw Jamie Miller this week. She was the hula hoop girl last night, which I love. She was at my workshop in December, and I always wonder, it's so hard to learn this in a workshop. It's 2 days. She teaches in Lake Tahoe, and I asked her, "How did your year go?" She said, "I went back to class and I did all TPRS for level 1. That is the attitude that I would like to give you. You can do this. Even if you do it poorly, even if you're new to this, so what? You will only get better. Based on feedback from teachers across the United States, because of this feedback, we are developing an online TPRS certification program. The reason we're doing this is because teachers go, "Oh, Richard Baker's got a study and talks about why people quit." Is that right, Richard? He's going to get his doctorate next month. But we knew before Richard's study that teachers dropped this. And so because of this, we are developing a certification program. We don't know, it's not finalized, we don't know when it will be finalized, but this is our answer to get teachers, give them someplace to go. We've identified about 20 modules that we will show, and we're going to demonstrate online. And then to go through this process, this certification process, people will have to film themselves and demonstrate competence in that module. They'll send it to us, we'll watch it, we'll give you feedback, and we'll either pass it or say that's not what we're looking for. We'll tell you how to improve and send it back. And we're breaking this down into doable skills. In other words, we're not going to tell you to do 20 things at once. We're going to say, practice one thing, send us your video, we'll watch your video, and we'll give you feedback. That someone won one at the girl. Who won that? Who was the big winner? You can do that. You can go to national to go to that certification if you want. Susan Gross once said, TPRX exists because Blaine Ray was a bad teacher. Boy, how true that was. People have heard my story know that I was fired from one job and almost fired from a couple of others. Luckily, though, I was able to persevere and learn how to do this. I can assure you I wasn't born with it, and it wasn't easy. But It was worth it. For years, I wrote a daily, or I still do, write a daily journal. In the 1980s or 70s and 80s, I wrote this about my struggles in life in a journal. Recently, my wife took those journals and read them all. She reported back and she said, Blaine, you really had a tough time there. Every time you wrote in your journal, you wrote that you were looking for another job. But she said, sometime about in the mid-1980s, she said you got really happy in your job. And she said you never looked for another job again. That is a reason to learn how to do TPRS, even if you start out doing it poorly. One way I fell in love with my job was to fall in love with my students. When I was struggling, I read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I implemented and practiced those chapters from that book with my students. I started asking about their lives. I won their hearts by showing interest in them. I gave them one of the best things I ever did, was giving my students extra credit by just writing about themselves. I said, you can write about yourself in any language. I loved reading what they wrote. I would spend hours writing back to them. I fell in love with my students and I fell in love with my job. It saved my career, but more than that, learning how to teach with stories and learning how to love those kids gave me a happy life. Your quest to become a better teacher might not be easy, but you can do it. You can do it. Someone once said, I remember best that which I learned with pleasure. My teaching days after I learned how to teach this way were filled with joy. May you have the same experience in your days of teaching. I love NTPRS. It feels like summer camp. I love summer camp. I always cried the last day, like open night, mic night, when I had to go home. Next year in July, we'll meet again in San Antonio. I don't know if you're aware of the podcast Tea with B. Van T, but we've invited Bill Van Patten next year to come to San Antonio. He has accepted to come and be with us next year. We need to have a purpose. TPRS has a purpose. Our purpose is to give these wonderful kids the gift of fluency and change the world one sentence at a time, one student at a time, one class at a time, and one teacher's heart at a time. Step by step, uno por uno, we can change how language is taught. Whenever I get discouraged and want to quit, I go to the internet and watch this great video that Deanna Noonan shared a few years ago at our conference. This still inspires me.
You'll get it right. You'll get it right. Don't stop, don't give up. 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 Keep trying, keep trying. Don't give up, don't give up. You'll get it right. You'll get it right. Don't stop, don't give up. Don't stop, don't give up. Don't stop, don't give up. Keep trying, keep trying. Don't give up, don't give up. You'll get it right. You'll get it right. Don't stop, don't give up. 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 Keep trying, keep trying. Don't give up, don't give up.
I can only say, don't stop, don't give up.